Hello, and welcome to lesson 5 of our Peer Gynt series. We are near the end of Peer Gynt's journey. We have one more lesson after today to find out all about what Peer Gynt has suffered, has been through, his travels. It's been quite a story, really, about Peer Gynt and what his travels have included. And we've bounced around the story a little bit because the music that Grieg used in his suites, he didn't do it in chronological order. He sort of moved around and chose the bits he liked and put them all together. And up until this week, we've been looking at suite number 1. So we've done the Morning Mood, Death of Orsa, the Anitra's Dance, and then last week was Hall of the Mountain King. And so they were all part of suite number 1. But he created a second suite of music, suite number 2. And he had 4 pieces of music within that suite as well. Now, we're not going to look at all 4 pieces of music. We're focusing on just 2. And the 2 that we're going to be looking at are Peer Gynt's Homecoming and, well, I'm not going to put a spoiler, but another one from that suite. Today we're going to be concentrating on Peer Gynt's Homecoming, and you can see that I've got some information up already telling you about the story of what's happening at this point. Now, before we get started, before we really sort of get into the nitty-gritty, let me remind you that there are worksheets up on the website or on Facebook as JPEGs that you can print off, download, and use for today's lesson that has got everything that we are covering on there, including an extra activity for you to have a go at after the lesson. Now, if you haven't got those worksheets, it's absolutely fine, but you will need a piece of paper and a pen or a pencil to just write down some ideas and things like that as we go along. And there may be some key words that you want to make a note of to remember for the future. If you're using the worksheet, we actually have a keyword section on there to help you. So all there for you, entirely up to you how you want to use the materials. They're there if you want them. Okay, so let's have a look at this part of the story. So we're actually near the very end of the play. This is the music at the beginning of Act 5. Act 5 is the very final act in the play. So I don't know whether you realise, but when you see a play, the play is split up into different sort of scenes, different parts of a story. And you'll have an Act 1, an Act 2, an Act 3, where scenes are sort of lumped together. And this is section 5 of it. So the music is telling us about Peer Gynt's journey back to Norway, and it's a very stormy. He's basically going to get shipwrecked on the coast of Norway at the end of the piece, but he's also got a lot of inner turmoil. He realizes at this point in the play just what an awful person he has been. He realizes all of the upset that he has caused to so many people, to his mum, to his girlfriend, to Ingrid, who he abducted right at the very start and what caused all the problems in the first place. He's realised just how bad he has been as a person, and he's having real difficulty getting his head around that, and he's feeling quite awful about it all. And he realises that, you know, he's getting on a bit now. He's much older. He's realising that he's coming towards the end of his life, and just what has he done with it? He's wasted it by being bad, and that sits really heavily on him. It's a bit deep, isn't it? Wow. So he's in despair, and he's heading back to Solveig, his girlfriend, the woman he loves, and yet the woman he's left so many times, that he's just sort of left and walked away. Every time there's been a bit of trouble, he's done a runner. I think that's the thing that we've taken from this story right from day one. Every time he's got himself into a little bit of trouble, he's run away. He's not hanging around. He's not going to face the music. He's going to just disappear. And that's what he's done. Okay, so let's have a little listen. I've not created the whole track for you this week. I've only created the very beginning of this piece of music. We're going to have a little listen to this, the opening of this piece. And what I want you to do is think about how Grieg makes it sound like Peer Gynt is traveling through a storm. He's physically traveling through a storm, as well as the storm, the turmoil in his head and how he's feeling. But the music is representing this big storm. So think about what a storm sounds like. It might have thunder and lightning. You can see some lightning on our picture there. Think about how that can be expressed through the music. Is it being expressed through the music? How is it being done? Think about the instruments that are being used. So have we got really dainty, tinkly little instruments, or have we got powerful instruments? And what are those instruments that are being played? The dynamics, is it quiet? Is it loud? Is it a combination of the two? We looked at a word last week. I think it was last week, might have been the week before, a crescendo, when it gradually gets louder. Does that happen? Think about the tempo. Is it fast? Is it slow? Does the tempo change? How does that sort of all fit together? Now, when we've done this sort of listening activity in the past, what I've suggested to you is have a listen to it the first time. Soak it in, let it wash over you, think about things, but don't write anything down, or just make little notes as you go. Don't write in sentences. Get a feel for the music first. And then when you listen to it a second time, and I actually might play it 3 times on this one because it is very short, that's when you start doing the writing. That's when you start putting pen to paper and start coming up with your ideas. So what I want you to do is to write a paragraph describing the music at this point and how it helps to tell the story. Okay, so that's the plan. We're going to listen to it 3 times because it is really short. Let me move out of the way. Always a good thing when I've disappeared, when you're listening to a piece of music, so I'm not a distraction. So we'll listen to it 3 times. First time, just let it wash over you, have a think about it. And then on the second and third time, you can write down your ideas. So here we go for the first time. You can see what I mean about it being very short. It's really not a long extract. Let's listen to it again, and this time have a go at writing down some of your ideas. What makes it sound like it's a stormy sea? Okay, so we're going to listen to it one more time for you to finish writing down your ideas. So last time. Okay. So what have you come up with? What are your ideas? What have you written down on your piece of paper? Let's have a think about what is happening in the music at this point to make it sound really dramatic. So the instruments that are being used, you've got that da-dum, 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 da-dum. That's very high pitched instruments. It's actually the flute and the oboe and the piccolo, which is a little baby flute. At some point, I might bring my my piccolo to a live lesson and show it you. They're tiny little things like this. You play it like that. It's absolutely tiny. It's baby flute. Is how I sort of refer to it, and it's really high pitched and quite shrill, actually. And then it drops down again, and then boom, it's really loud again. So you've got this. It's not a gradual change in dynamic. It's quite dramatic. Loud, then quiet. Loud, then quiet. And that's done on purpose, because if you think about when the waves crash over the boat, the bow of the boat, or it could be you're at the seaside and you're watching the waves crashing against a sea wall or whatever. It's very dramatic and it's very loud. It's not quiet and subtle. There's no subtlety there at all. Boom, and it's there. So that's really what Grieg's doing. He's making that really dramatic sort of bash as the water hits Peer Gynt's boat, and it's boom. You could also say that some of that could be the lightning and the thunder and the sound of the storm in that way. And it's all very, very dramatic in that respect. You've got brass instruments as well. You've got horns and tubas and trombones that are giving this real depth to the music, sort of powerful instruments. Brass instruments are great for when you're trying to make something very powerful and loud in that respect, because they can be so loud and so punchy as an instrument. Great use of an instrument for this. The tempo. Now, how do you think the tempo is? Be interesting to know what you think about the tempo. The tempo, 1 2 3 4 5 6 1 2 3 4 5 6. You'll understand what I'm saying in a minute. But ba-dum 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 da 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 dum da 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 dum. It's actually quite fast, isn't it? There's quite a bit of speed to that. Now that doesn't mean that Peer Gynt is moving through the water fast. It doesn't mean that at all. What it's telling us is that it puts us on edge because it's that bit quicker. If it was slow, da-dum ba-dum 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 ba-dum, it's a bit leisurely, that it wouldn't have that same intensity. It wouldn't have that same dramaticness, if that's a word, about it. It's the tempo that helps to move it on and make you feel uncomfortable. Oh gosh, is it going to be okay? Is it, the shipwreck? Oh, and the wind. Think about that wind whooshing through as well. Very dramatic and very, very cleverly done by Grieg. So we've had a little listen to it. We're going to be coming back to it in a second. Let's look at what I want you to have a look at next. Now, I was counting in 6. 1 2 3 4 5 6 1 2 3 4 5 6. We looked at conducting a couple of weeks ago when we were looking at Anitra's dance, and we learned how to conduct in 3. 1 2 3. We made a triangle. Okay. This piece of music is in 6/8. Now, we don't tend to conduct in 6. Sometimes we do. I'm not going to, it's not a hard, fast rule we never conduct in 6. That's not true, because sometimes we do. But in an instance where you're using a time signature like 6/8, you don't tend to conduct in 6, particularly at that speed. Because can you imagine? I mean, 1 2 3 4 5 6 1 2 3 4 5 6. You couldn't do it. The conductor couldn't move quickly enough, and it would be very confusing for the orchestra. We're counting in quavers. Normally, we count in crotchets. 1 2 3 1 2 3. For Anitra's dance, there was a number 4 at the bottom of the time signature that told us we were counting in crotchets. Things are very mathematical in music. So, because we're counting in quavers, they're shorter notes, we have a number 8 at the bottom. It's all linked to semi-breves, 4-beat notes. There's 4 crotchet beats, 4 1-beat notes in a semi-breve. There's 8 quavers in a semi-breve. And so we use the number 8 at the bottom of a time signature to say we are counting in quavers. And to be quite honest, that's the only thing you need to know. A number 8 at the bottom means we're counting in quavers. The number at the top tells us how many. So we've got 6 quavers in a bar. Now, think about how it feels. It was 6/8 actually in Morning Mood. We've come across this time signature before. 1 2 3 4 5 6. 1 2 3 4 5 6. 1 2 3 4 5 6. It feels you sway in 2. And if you think about it, 6, if we're thinking in 3 times table, 2 threes make 6. I'll get it right. 2 threes make 6. And so we are dividing it. Okay, so if there was a number 9 at the top, we would divide it by 3 and we would come up with 3. And then we would conduct in 3. Okay, I'm hoping I'm not confusing you too much by all this mathy stuff. So 6/8, and we're going to conduct in 2. Now you can see at the bottom we have a diagram to show you how to conduct in 2, and it couldn't be more simple. It doesn't matter which hand you use. You can use either. There is no rule that conductors have to be right-handed. So we go 1 2 1 2. I always put a little hook on the end just to show that that's the end of 1, because otherwise 1 2 1 2. You can conduct it like that if you want, but 1 2 1 2. Now we're going to have a go at conducting with this piece of music, and it's fast, so your arm's going to have to go a little bit quicker than we've just been practicing, but let's give it a try. 1 2 1 2. 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2. 1 2 1 2. You can see what I mean about conductors not being able to conduct in 6. I mean, it's quite quick in 2. Imagine trying to conduct 6. You wouldn't get me doing it when I'm conducting. No way. That is just way too fast for a 6. 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2. Now that's something that you can have a go at doing. I don't think the music's file is up on the website yet, but it will be. So you can have a go at conducting along with it, or even better, because obviously, as you know, if you've been to our lessons before, these files, these sound tracks are created specifically for the lessons so that there's no copyright issues or anything. So it's all computer generated. I've had to program it all in. It does take a while for that to happen, which is another reason why you've only got part of a piece this week, because it's a big orchestral piece, and so it takes a long time to put sort of input. So what would be really good is for you to have a listen to an original recording of a live orchestra playing it and conducting along with them, or follow it on YouTube. Have a look at a YouTube version and see if you can conduct along with the conductor. Okay, because it's so much better to listen to live instruments rather than the computer generated ones that I'm using. However, these are good obviously for what we're doing today. Okay, right, let's move on, because we've got even more to do, and this could be complicated. It depends on how you look at it. So we're going to have a look at something called a chromatic scale. Now, the reason I'm introducing something as complicated, if you like, as a chromatic scale is because towards the end of the piece of music, Grieg uses the chromatic scale to make it even more dramatic. Let me play it to you so you can see what I mean. It sounds a bit creepy as well. Chromatic scales are great if you're trying to make music that is scary or exciting or something dramatic is going to happen. Chromatic scales are brilliant for that. And so we're going to have a look at what a chromatic scale actually is. Now, I've got a little keyboard at the bottom there for you to have a look at. So you can see that's the piano keyboard from C to C. So you've got what we call an octave, okay, from C to C. A chromatic scale has 12 pitches, 12 notes in it. Every single note that you can see is being used, okay? And if you count from C to B, because obviously you wouldn't count C twice, you can count that there are 12 notes. And that's what a chromatic scale is. You are using every single one of those notes. Each note is what we call a semitone, above or below. Semitone means one note, one note. So E to F is a semitone because there's no note in between. B to C is a semitone because there's no note in between. C to D isn't a semitone because you've got a black key in between. And so C to what we call C sharp, and I'll explain what that means in a minute, that the white key to the black key is a semitone, okay, because it's the distance of one note, just one note. So this chromatic scale is made up of these things called semitones. But I've mentioned the word sharp, and I'm also going to mention the word flat. What is a sharp and what is a flat? Now, we're thinking of it as using the notes, the black keys on the keyboard. And in many ways, that's the easiest way for you to sort of get your head around it. Our Mini Mozart's back. We haven't seen Mini Mozart for a while. He's at the bottom of the page there to help us to understand what these things are. So when you sharpen a note, you lift it. You're raising the note. You're lifting it up. All of this is on the worksheet to help you. So we take it up to the next note, and the symbol that we use for a sharp, you might know as a hashtag, but if you're a musician, you always refer to it as a sharp. You never refer to it as a hashtag, okay? So C sharp is the one note higher, the black key that is higher to the right of the keyboard than a C. When we use a flat, and a flat looks like a lowercase b, when we're using a flat, we flatten it. In effect, we squish it, okay? And you can see our Mini Mozart there. He's got a wrecking ball and he has squished the note. So you squish it down, you flatten it. So if you think of a B and you go down a note, you get to B flat. So let me go back to our keyboard. There we go. And you can see what I mean. So C, and you raise it one note, and you get to the C sharp. Okay, so you've got the C and then the symbol for sharp, which looks a bit like hashtag. And then for the B, we squish it. So you find B on the keyboard, you go down one note, and you land on a B flat, the black key below it. Okay, so that's the difference between a sharp and a flat. Sharp raises it, flat flattens it. Okay, and there is another symbol on that page, and I suppose it's important really that I explain what that is. Next to the C, because we've got a sharp symbol in that bar, automatically the C is written with, it looks a bit like, if you think of your body as a box and then one arm goes one way and one arm goes the other, that's sort of the shape of this symbol. And that means it's a normal C. It's a normal note. It's not a sharp, it's not a flat. It's what we call a natural. It's just as it should be. It's naturally as it should be. Okay? Just in case you were wondering, she hasn't explained that symbol. That's what it means. So you've got, in that illustration, you've got a C sharp, and then you've got your normal C, and then you've got your E flat, I've used there, and your normal E. So sharps, flats. So you can see on the keyboard, and I'm sure that you've noticed this, some of the notes have got two names, and that's okay. Some notes, well, notes can have two names. That's okay. Notes can have two names. So because if you start on a C and you raise it by a semitone, you will go to a C sharp. But if I started on a D and I flattened it, I squished it and I went down, I'd be on a D flat. They're the same note. You can call it either name. Okay? It depends on whether you're using sharps or whether you're using flats in the music. And that's all to do with key signatures and things like that, which we're not going to go into. You don't need to know that today. But notes can have the same name. So a C sharp and a D flat are the same note. A D sharp and an E flat are the same note because one's being raised and one's being flattened, but you end up in the same place. Okay. I hope that is relatively straightforward. So let's go back to our chromatic scale. So let me just play you, I should have done this earlier, really, what this chromatic scale actually sounds like. So that's what a chromatic scale sounds like. It's the C scale. Let me play it again. Now, if you think about how Greek's using that chromatic scale, and let me play you the end of that homecoming piece again, those chromatic scales sped up. Now, Greek's going up and down. He's not just going up. He starts bringing the scale down and then it goes back up and then down and up. Again, it could be the idea of the waves. And it certainly at that faster speed, it creates that sense of tension and nervousness and what's going to happen next. Well, what is going to happen next? What's going to happen next is we are coming to the end of today's lesson. And obviously, I mean, I'm encouraging you to listen to real performances, live performances of these pieces of music. So as sort of an extension activity, an additional activity. And again, it's on the worksheet. It's all there for you at the bottom of the worksheet there. Let's see if I can get it right. There we go. The additional activity is to have a listen to an orchestra playing Peer Gynt's Homecoming and then draw a picture and write a paragraph to describe what is happening at this point in the story, how Peer Gynt's feeling at this point in the play. How does he feel? We talked about it at the beginning. How does the music help to sort of describe that when you listen to the whole piece? And that's where we're going to stop. So he's not home yet. He's nearly there, but he's not home yet. So next week, we will get Peer Gynt home. That's the plan. So it's been lovely, as always. The next thing to think about is that we are coming very close. I mean, obviously, we've only got one more lesson left on Peer Gynt. What is our next topic going to be? Well, we've covered quite a lot within Peer Gynt. We've learned how to conduct in 2 and in 3. We've learned about chromatic scales. We've learned about how to describe music using terminology. We've looked at, if you've been doing the extension activities, you've looked at new words, keywords, terminology, trills, all sorts of things. We've looked at quite a lot of things. The next project, the next topic, it has 7 pieces of music in it. And I don't want to give too much away today, but there's going to be a little bit of a quiz to see if you can work out what it's going to be. That's all I'm going to say. It's a biggie, and there's a lot to it, and we're going to be able to look at mythology, science, as well as music. So we're going to have a lot to do. I'm going to disappear, and I look forward to seeing you next week for our final trip with Peer Gynt. Bye for now.